Hey there, David Gordon from TheaterMania here. It is Tuesday, September 29th. I'm here with the great Michael Benjamin Washington, star of the Tony-winning Broadway revival of The Boys in the Band, which is coming to Netflix tomorrow. New film version directed by Joe Mantello, who staged the play on Broadway, and it is the full Broadway ensemble. And it's a great, great movie, and I urge you all to go on Netflix tomorrow or this weekend and watch it. Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm well, Mr. Gordon. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to see your face.
You as well, my friend.
Tell me about how you got involved with the Boys in the Band to begin with, like all the years.
Yeah, about 4 years ago, I was invited by David Kapp, our casting director, to do a workshop of the piece, and we sat around the table and read it 3 times. And I think it was kind of like an audition / let's see if this is something you want to do. And at first I was kind of nervous because I read the script and didn't quite get it. And as I told Mark later, I wrote him a letter once rehearsals began, like, why did you write Blackman into this play of this all-white tribe? Why can't he get out of this room? I couldn't figure that out for a while. Then we read it, and I saw Robin DeJesus in there, and he completely changed the dramaturgy for my character. It made it a very, very different story, one that I felt like I was able to play with. And then it worked out. And we started rehearsals a year later, then we did the movie a year later, and now we're selling it a year later. So it's been 4 summers. I feel like a senior. I started when I was a freshman, and now I'm graduating.
What is that like for you to know that your performance, the accumulation of like 4 years worth of work, is going to like live on forever on Netflix?
Well, I mean, how lucky is it to have 40 years before we got to the place where it would be so permanent? You know, it's like if you haven't figured out the kinks in the character by now, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. It was a great luxury just to be able to go through 15 weeks on the most pressure-filled stage in the world. I mean, Broadway is the theater capital of the world, and that audience is discerning and very expectant, and it felt good to have to live up to that, you know, performance level every night. And then of course the film is a very different thing, so I felt very grateful that we got to work around a table for a summer, and then work in a theater for a summer, and then on a soundstage for a summer.
What was it like to do the show? Like, was it as a gay man, as a black man, was it like difficult to do this arc 7-8 times a week, twice on Saturday and Tuesdays?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, the back half of this movie, my character is like an emotional fire dumpster. You know what I mean? He's just kind of already shattering to the place where he's shattered by the end. And I mean, going through that every single night, my body started to shut down. Charlie Carver, he would, you know, he's, I don't know, I think he has like a medical degree. He knows like every disease and every and he knew exactly what was happening. It's like your body's slipping into trauma and it's trying to protect you now, you know? So it became this thing of, can you cry like that 8 times a week and not drop dead? And I'm still alive, so it worked.
Yeah. And after having done Fires in the Mirror too, which is, I would imagine, another tough one for your body.
I know. I'm doing a table read of a sitcom for NBC after this interview, and I'm so excited about doing a nice, gentle 21 minute, keep it light and bright kind of a thing. But yeah, man, Fires in the Mirror, 26 characters, hour and a half, no understudy, and Anna Devere Smith is right there looking at you. It's like, woo!
That production was tremendous.
Well, thank you. We're going to be doing it again in the top of the year to film it out in La Jolla. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but you know.
Oh, that's amazing. I was going to say it feels like the sort of thing that's even more prescient now than it was when you did it, and just as it feels just as prescient now as probably when she was doing it the first time.
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't know it was going to be such a prophetic notion doing it every time, you know, and every night until this year happened. 2020 brought so much of that to life for me that I was able to like at least discern my feelings, because I had gone through 26 points of view on it already. So to go again and see where we are, you know, a couple of months from now.
What was it like to film Boys in the Band? Did it feel like a continuation of the play, or did it feel like its own thing?
It really felt like its own thing, because as much as we were so comfortable with each other and the camaraderie, which I hope and I feel comes across on camera, you still have to pretend like you don't know the end of the play, you know, so
Right.
it is that diving into it. But the great thing was, instead of having to do the whole art every night and be wasted, the back half of that emotionally and, you know, alcoholic wasted at the back end, we shot it in order over 29 days. So it was like you would do part of it and then you would leave it behind and do part of it and leave it behind. And Joe was so careful so that we didn't have to go back to do any pickups months later. It was like, once we did it, you were letting it go. And it was like a great purge of it.
That's really nice, actually. That must have been really nice for you after going through trauma for 16 weeks.
Absolutely. I mean, we the final scene, which if you haven't seen it yet, Robin DeJesus and I have a moment, and that was the final shot of the film. You know, they wrapped Robin and I, and they say it's a picture wrap for Joe Mantello, and it was at 4 o'clock in the morning in a diner in Brooklyn, and it was just emotionally, oh man, how I cried, just because I was like, I don't have to cry anymore, crying so I don't have to cry anymore. It was great. It was a beautiful experience. And Joe, what he was able to do with this film blows my mind. I mean, we've talked every day outside of junketing, emailing and texting and calling, and the reception. I'm so proud of him for only his second film. It feels like a Picasso to me. It's really, really beautifully done.
Did you feel, so you guys knew the movie was happening during the Broadway run?
There was talk about it, but of course you don't know if you're going to go with it, you know.
Right.
I'm sure that the mom probably thought the same thing too, so you don't get ahead of yourself. You know that there's a possibility that the story will extend beyond you. Did you feel an unfinished business with the character, that when you heard you'd been asked to do the film, you were like, oh good, I'm finally going to get to explore that thing that I just discovered 2 weeks before we ended on Broadway? Of course. I'm a huge Viola Davis fan, as many of us are. And she did an interview talking about, you know, doing Fences every night before they did the film production. And she thought, well, there were just things on stage I never figured out. But stage technique allows you to kind of put it over the foot and keep it moving. But in front of the camera, they can tell your line. And so there were certain moments I had to go back in and really figure out so that you could see it on camera. And some of it was painful. Some of it were the things that I didn't really want to really feel 8 times a week, but you have to feel in front of the camera. So I was excited to be brave enough to play the play a little bit more, if that makes sense. What was it like to have Mark Crowley both on set on Broadway and on set for the film before he passed away earlier this year? Yeah, he and I got very close. I mean, talk about a really great gift giver, especially on my birthday. We got along so well, and we'd go out a lot and have long talks, the best stories I've ever heard about old Hollywood and yesteryear and Natalie Wood and what happened with these people. And it was so great to have him there to answer a lot of our questions. And brilliant email writer. If we actually put all of our emails from Mark Crowley together and made a book, it would be a beautiful piece of prose. Just him explaining character Bernard to me and who it's based on, and to have that anchor instead of, you know, thinking, is this just a black guy in a you know, in the story, is he a device? But no, it's somebody from his past. But to see him come on that set, and you know, he was a beautifully dressed dandy. He really knew how to carry himself and present himself with that old polish. And he was like a proud papa, just floating around. We got photo shoots with him. I don't know what he got to see, but his presence there alone, him knowing that we were doing it and doing it at that level, you know, a Ryan Murphy production ain't cheap, and Netflix does not, you know, pinch pennies. So for him to get that treatment, it felt good for him to see that. And he must have loved knowing that it was an entirely queer company too. Since the first version was famously like a mix of heterosexual actors and gay actors. Yeah, and him really going back 52 years ago for that company to be able to do that film. I mean, a lot of studios wanted him to, who were offering him a crap load of money to replace all of stage actors, many of them being gay, but Hollywood straight actors, and he refused until he made it with that company. So I think it was a great thing for him to get to see that. I don't think an all-gay cast was anybody's agenda. There were understudies and standbys. There was a mixed company, but it was great that we were able to do it this way, I think.
Someone in the comments is talking about your performance on Ratchet.
Yeah.
Did that come about? Did that come about because of the movie? Like, did that come about because of the experience?
No. When we had first gotten together in New York to do a New York Times photo shoot for the stage production, I talked to Ryan Murphy about my play about Bayard Rustin, and I was having some trouble getting it on. And one of the criticisms that I was having from theater companies was a professional gay black man in the 1960s wouldn't be believable to our audience. And
Insane.
he was bored.
Insane.
Yeah,
it's insane.
He was bored by that. He was like, wait, I don't get it. I don't get it. So time went on. I'm sorry that happened to you. Time went on, and then opening night, he and Sarah Paulson came up to me and he said, I have an idea. And I'm like, what is it? Months later, I get these cryptic sides that are sent hand-delivered by a messenger. Ryan doesn't email any scripts. He sends messengers to put it into your hand and you sign. And I started piecing the things together, and it was Ratchet. It was a lawyer in 1947 who was a partner at a firm, and he wanted to make sure a black man had that agency, had that kind of power. And that's so much a part of Ryan Murphy's branding. People call it, what is it? I call it corrective history, but some people call it something with an R, some other kind of history, reconstruction or something. But I feel like he goes back into time and he puts black people, brown people, women over 40, Asian folks, LGBT people into the narrative and as close to the center of the action as possible, because people have seen the erasure of us over time. So I was blown away by that opportunity. And Cynthia Nixon, I mean, my God.
So he did all that because you told him once that you couldn't get your play on.
No, I don't know that. That's my interpretation of it, because otherwise it would have come out of nowhere. But I think that's what he does. When I see him putting Anna May Wong into Hollywood or giving Jeremy Cope that space, he goes back and puts us back into time.
Tell me about your play, which we've talked a lot. You've never told me about this play before.
Yeah. Oh, well, I wrote a play 7 years ago about Bayard Rustin, the openly gay black architect of the civil rights movement, who was Dr. King's mentor and taught him nonviolent civil disobedience. And the play takes place in the 2 months he had to plan the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom to get back into the good graces of the civil rights movement, which had banished him because of homosexuality. And the great mountain he had to climb to get what is now deemed as America's finest hour, a peaceful protest to tell our administration that black people are not 3/5 of a human being, so the Civil Rights Act of '64 could get passed. We did it at La Jolla Playhouse. It won a lot of awards. Felicia Rashad directed it for 2 years in development. We went to Kansas City Rep, and some regional theaters have been able to pick it up since. But my pal Michael Urie put it on in Stonewall 50 Festival last summer. And it was the first time I got to do it in New York. And it's I'm hoping to do it again, but it is a tricky thing to get folks to put it on.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're doing Fires in the Mirror again too. We'll keep that on the DL.
Right.
Tell me about that experience, because that was one of I saw that in January, I think. And I didn't realize that it was going to be like one of the last shows that I saw before everything went down with coronavirus and stuff. But looking back, what was that experience like for you as an actor? Because I remember when we did a piece, you, me, and Anna Deavere Smith, and you were talking about it was difficult for you and there are characters that you had a harder time understanding or figuring out your way into. By the end of that run, did you think you understood and found your way into all 26 characters, or do you still have the unfinished business that you're excited to correct when you do it again?
I'm excited to correct it again because one is it's such a cinematic experience, kind of like Boys Band is. It really is. It can live in a very different way in close up, and we're going to do it again to film it because I want a wider audience to see it. But doing it, and we closed 2 days before Christmas, and it got extended 4 times.
Right.
So my expectation of doing it for 3 weeks, maybe with a 1 week extension, moved to almost 3 months. And as Anna Deavere Smith says, and had trouble doing in the original production, 8 shows a week of that it's brutal in a way that you can't plan for. the human body almost can't keep up with that level of a marathon every single day. But
Yeah.
so the trickiness wasn't getting into the minds of the character. It was to keep the adrenaline going throughout the entire run. She kept telling me, you need to go and watch Judith Jamison dance Cry, the ballet Cry. And I was like, I'm writing a play about the ballet Cry. And she's like, well, so you understand what hitting the wall is and going to the wall. And going to the wall means pushing yourself to that place where you don't think you can go past. And somehow, like a runner knows, you break through that wall so that your body keeps going at another level. So I'm excited to find out what my new wall is now that I've gotten to revisit Boys in the Band again. And the world has changed so much since we
So much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm excited for you to go after this and do a comedy for a change.
I know. It's really nice. Just a nice, simple, gentle comedy.
Michael, thank you for your time, as always. It's so good to talk to you.
You too, Mr. Gordon. Thank you, TheaterMania.
Thank you. I'll see you soon, hopefully in person eventually.
Absolutely.
Thanks, you too, and thanks everybody for watching. Be well.